Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Fuentes, the founder of Fountain AI. We're helping businesses save time, automate operations, and increase profits. Today, I'm joined by Michael Johnson. Michael, can you tell us what you do and who you are?
I own a landscape design company here in Syracuse, New York. I started it in 2009, just myself while I was working another full-time job, and kind of just been growing it ever since. We specialize in outdoor living spaces, and we also have a maintenance division as well. So your typical landscaping, lawn mowing, snow plowing, pretty much 95% commercial. Been kind of getting out of the residential side for the snow. We still do a decent amount of landscaping on the residential side, but it's just recurring clients that we've been working for years that just it's a good little niche to be in. But our passion is outdoor living spaces, from design to conception. About 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we started just simply our installs turned to just designs only. So historically, before that, we'd have outdoor living projects where we just did a pen and paper kind of sketch or marked it out in the yard with the customer and then kind of put it in our scope of work, type of materials, colors, sizes, stuff like that. But about 3 years ago, started getting heavy into the 3D design. So every project we push out now is designed in-house by us before we even consider doing the actual installation. So we get with the customer, we think about their wants and their needs, and we walk the site with them. We do charge for our designs up front. Once that's paid, we begin the design process, and typically those designs can take a few days to a few weeks to a few months. It really depends on the size of the project. And then once the customer approves the design, 99% of the time they love the design and they're ready to pull the trigger. Um, we'll go ahead and set up their payment schedule, get the contract signed, and then schedule for installation. And then we build these awesome projects. So it's great to be doing that. It's great to be doing what we love, but we definitely have found out to be a lot more successful to have a design, have something we know exactly what we're building. And if you look at some of the projects we're doing, especially this one we just finished up last week, that from the design to reality, it's a spitting image. And we have a plan, we follow it. Plans eliminate change orders. Plans tell the customers exactly what they're going to get, exactly what they're going to pay for. And then there's no hiccups along the way. We want it to be seamless for both the customer and the contractor.
What what was the reason for you getting into this business exactly?
Long story short, like I said, I worked for another company full time while I was doing this business. I was just in the maintenance side of things when I started out, and basically what it came down to is, it started as a snow plowing company. Pro Snow Removal is the name of the company, and wanted to keep growing. We started growing. We started to see that, with our snow plowing contracts, because snow plowing is pretty lucrative when we came up for renewals for our agreements with our clients, we were getting these landscapers that were trying to undercut us. And, they did the lawn care, the landscaping, and they were trying to undercut us and take away the snow plowing contract. So I didn't want any part of that. So I got into the lawn mowing and landscaping overnight. And our customers were really happy with our snow plowing service. So we said basically, okay, we're going to service you 12 months out of the year instead of just the winter. So we're going to package everything together for you, maybe give you some kind of bulk discount if you hire us to be your preferred contractor for the whole year. So we did that. That was great. That's working out awesome. But we needed a way to grow our revenue. Lawn mowing is pretty fixed, and it doesn't make it doesn't have a good profit margin, right? Because there's a million guys out there with a pickup truck and a lawnmower, and they go cut grass after their day job. So what we need to do is we needed to add on a service that could basically give us extra revenue. So in early 2010s, I'd say probably like 2012-ish, I had a friend who was pretty successful in the outdoor living side of things. who basically took me under his shoulder, told me everything I needed to know, taught me, trained me, and immediately hit the ground running. Started doing some small hardscape projects, nothing, you know, real small stuff that was less than $2,500, maybe a little sidewalk, something like that, just to kind of learn it and perfect it, and then just keep growing it from there. So we started getting into the installations, and we built another crew, um, you know, to do all these installs, and it just kind of grew over the years. We started our first year, I think, maybe we did $50,000 worth of hardscape projects, and our biggest project at the time was like $17,000, right? Now, fast forward to 2025, 10 years later, we just finished a project that was, well over a $500,000, So, it's definitely grown quite a bit. Our style, the way we do things, the way we install, and just kind of like I would say like our unique, you know, fingerprint on these projects. When you look at our projects, you can tell it's our project versus a competitor's project. Our motto is more self, full custom. So versus a lot of competitors that we compete with, they don't have that same model. They're more of what I would call cookie cutter. They're appealing to those customers that just want a simple patio. You know, but I've always been one of those guys where if I'm going to spend some money on something, I want to spend it once, and I want to have the maximum return on what I spend. So anything I buy in life, if I really need it and I have to have it, I want to make sure that it's going to last for what I need it for. It's going to be everything that I want it to be, and I'm not wasting that dollar. So when we come in and we do like a feasibility study with our customers, and we try to maximize every square foot of a patio as far as how it's going to be used. You know, a lot of times you can go through a patio and you can look at a section of patio that comes into a corner of a house behind a deck or something like that, and it looks great, but the reality is they'll never be able to use that space. They'll never be able to put a table there. They'll never be able to put a storage bin there. They'll never be able to put a chair there or a grill there. So it's money wasted. So my approach is when I design these patios is we want to be able to utilize every square foot of this patio. So if a customer is spending $40 or $50 per square foot on a patio, they're going to be able to get a maximum return on every square foot of that patio. So that's just one of the things, one of the steps we take when we design these patios. Now, with that being said, I try to make our approach a lot different than the competitors because there is a lot of market out there for the customers that just want a 500 square foot patio, or maybe they want a fire pit. But, those aren't the projects that I'm after. I'm after the building a relationship with a customer and giving them maximum return on their investment. If they, in any event, if they ever sell their home, probably going to sell their home for 30% more than what it was worth before. They're going to get all their money back and then some on whatever it is that we did for them. That's just one way of looking at it.
Yeah. How do you go about getting new clients now?
So it's definitely, I'd say 2025 has definitely been the most challenging year for leads for my business. Um, I think for a couple of reasons. One is we just had a presidential election. Number two, we've definitely exceeded and plateaued from the COVID high, right? In 2020, when we had COVID, my company grew 48% in 2020. In 2021, my company grew another 28%. Okay. And then it kind of leveled out in 23 and 24. 24 started to dive a little bit more. And then now 25, it's been a pretty slow year. Luckily we've worked every day. We've had work every day and we've had good intake, but nowhere's near what we used to have. So the way we get most of our work, almost all of our work, is word of mouth, is referral. We do a lot of social media posts, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and I'm not sure how much work is generated from that, but we definitely have a good brand on those channels that I would say is modern and fresh, and it's going to attract a certain audience that we want. We don't spend any money on marketing. I've never really done that. I always got burned. Didn't see the results that I wanted to get, didn't get the good customers. I could get the phone to ring, but I got garbage customers, people shopping around, tire kickers, whatever you want to call them. All they care about is price. I tell everybody up front, listen, if you're shopping for the best price, I'm not your guy, because I'm going to take longer. I'm going to use special tools. I'm going to make sure that there's no shortcuts taken. And to be honest with you, every one of my guys, in order to attract the best employees, you have to pay them the best. You have to give them the best benefits. So our guys, okay, healthcare, dental, vision, industry pay. I mean, so that's in order for me to have the best guys that I can trust on, that I can count on, that's going to do great work with our name on it and not get callbacks. I'm going to have to pay them just like anybody else, with all these perks. So in order to do that, my overhead's higher, right? If I have the best equipment, if I have the best tools, if I have the best insurance, if I have the best vehicles, if I have the best guys, my overhead's going to be higher. And so we charge accordingly for that, you know. Don't get me wrong, there's a big market of going out there and doing small jobs and charging less per square foot, getting in and getting out, right? Like I call it the roofing model, right? You see all these roofing crews, they come in and they do 2, 3 roofs in a day, right? That's great, but I'm not doing that, you know. I want to make sure that every night you come home, whether it's during the project or after the project, you don't have any questions. You know exactly what you're getting, and you know that it's going to stand the test of time. It's not going to fail. It's not going to settle. It's not going to crack. It's not going to have any unevenness, or it's not going to fall over. You know, those are all things that can be avoided during the construction process, but you got to charge according for it. You know, what it comes down to is your guys. If you want the best guys, it's going to cost money. I don't want subpar people working on my house. I don't want summer help working on my house. You know, you're just not going to get a good product.
So what does your day look like now?
So we're transitioning up here in Central New York, Syracuse, New York. We're transitioning into our winter season. So we're definitely hurrying the best we can right now. We still have a couple projects open, trying to get them wrapped up before the snow flies. So we're monitoring the weather, but after this week, we have to be ready to service our snow clients, right? We have to be ready to salt, we have to be ready to plow, because contract starts November 1st, which is Saturday. So we're not going to be ready, but unfortunately, or fortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to experience any winter weather just yet. So, but we're always, when it comes to switching to the transition season, it's always a shotgun start. Like we're getting ready overnight, basically because we can't stop doing what we're doing. We have to finish up what we're doing, and we'll work through the winter as well, on these outdoor living projects. If it's not snowing, we're still working. We use an open graded base, so we don't have to worry about water or moisture or anything like that. So, it's not fun working in the winter outside, but we manage, you know. Last year, we opened up a massive project in October, thinking we were going to have a mild winter, and we actually got blasted with snow last winter. We got over 10 feet of snow, over
Wow.
130 inches. So on that particular job, we were only able to work 3 days between December and April on that project, because all the other times it was we were plowing or we were salting.
So which part of your business, like which pillar of the business do you feel like you have least control over? Would you say it's the lead gen side, the follow-up side, the project management side, or maybe even like the customer satisfaction side?
Least control is probably marketing, getting leads. That's like I said, we could have a year like 2020 where the phone rang like crazy and it was good customers and the economy was booming and they had the money. The big thing in 2020 was everybody was home. Everything was shut down. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go on vacation, you couldn't fly, you couldn't go to a funeral, you couldn't go to church. So everybody was home. So what were they doing when they were home? They're looking at their backyard, right? And they couldn't go do all these other things. They're going to spend a lot of time at home, so they spent a lot of money in their backyard. So that's why it was a great year for landscaping companies. Now people are back to normal, going on vacations, traveling, so they're not spending as much money at their house anymore, you know. So I would say the least control I have over is definitely lead generation, and something I'm going to be looking at very closely over the next few months going into next year to try to create a game plan, whether it's with a marketing firm or something I do differently in house. I have been approached by a few different people who do like social media stuff and they do marketing and stuff like that, but in my eyes, it's super expensive for no guaranteed results. I've had guys quote me $1,000 a month. I've had guys quote me $30,000 a month. I got to generate quite a bit of business because I don't have a marketing budget, right? To be able to sustain that model. So it really depends on, how much I want to do versus how much I want someone else to do it for me. You know, I would say what was big for us this year is we asked for Google reviews, and I would say literally I got a 5-star Google review from every job we've done this year, with the exception of maybe one customer, and it's because that customer does not do Gmail, does not do Google reviews. They refuse to get a Google account for whatever reason, But I would say that's pretty big, It helps when people search you on Google, it helps to see those reviews. So yeah, I got to do something different, I think, coming into next year. But this business is volatile, especially now more than ever, with the economy, with the different things that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And just the saturation too. There's a lot of guys out there that advertise the same stuff that I do, and might sell price over warranty, price over product, price over quality. We offer a 5-year no we peace of mind guarantee on all of our outdoor living spaces. Nobody has a 5-year warranty where I'm at.
What is exactly?
So basically for 5 years, if you have a manufacturer's defect with the material, so it cracks, or it settles, or you get some water pooling, or you get your joining sand wash out, or something like that. Anything basically within the first 5 years, it's covered 100% material and labor. So I mean that's a huge peace of mind to have right there. I see a handful of contractors just avoid so many crucial steps in the beginning of the project, and it blows my mind sometimes how many people just give away their money and
Yeah.
don't have any recourse for the shoddy install they just got. I always tell people it's not like buying a gallon of milk, you know. You could get a gallon of milk anywheres, right? It's pretty much the same, you know. But not with contractors, and there's a lot of horror stories with contractors these days, because let's be real, I mean, we're all in the business to make money, but when it comes down to standing behind your work, you know, a lot of guys don't do that, you know. I'll stand behind my work no matter what it costs because at the end of the day, when I put our name on it, it's got to be perfect. And that's the difference between doing 20 jobs a year or 200, right? I'm not doing 200 jobs a year, you know. I'm doing less jobs during the year that are, but
I
are,
like it.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So where do you see yourself with the business a year from now?
Honest answer could be one or two things. I'm either going to be, let's say, like right now with where we're at is a sweet spot. Okay, between $1.5 and $2 million gross revenue a year. I would say it's a really good sweet spot for my company because with the amount of employees I have, I used to be a couple years ago. I used to have a lot more employees than I have now. I kind of downsized. And I'm glad I did that. It was a good business decision. But a year from now, I'll probably still be at where we're at now, just kind of hovering in this sweet spot, and then we'll grow with the economy, whatever the economy does. Or I've often thought about maybe removing the maintenance side of the company, selling that and selling the company name and all the maintenance that goes along with it, the lawn, the snow, the landscaping, and rebranding just to doing outdoor living spaces, just to doing construction, you know. I've been thinking about that quite a bit, and I have a good plan put together. I just haven't decided when to pull the trigger on that yet.
What do you think would make you pull the trigger, and what is the reason for doing that?
So I would say the reason for doing that is think about maintenance on anything, right? Maintenance, a lot of moving parts, right? So like the maintenance side of the company, the lawn, the snow, that's probably the most challenging part of owning a business like this for any company, right? Because of the schedule, the weather, the turnover. Not a lot of people want to be out snow plowing at 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, so think of it just like as a lot of moving parts. And I want to try to streamline everything. I want to get rid of as much moving parts as I can to have things to be easier and more simpler, right? So there's a bigger overhead for the maintenance side too. There's more wear and tear on the equipment. Like I said, it's tougher to retain employees. They got to go through that schedule. It's really tough on your body. And then there's a sales tax component to it as well. So all the maintenance being a service, as a company, you have to pay New York State sales tax. So we pay 8% sales tax where we are for every maintenance project we do, whether it's lawn, snow. So, we can eliminate that whole component and eliminate all that paperwork with New York State and just do capital improvements, installations where, we don't have to deal with the New York State sales tax side of things. More time out in the field, less time in the office. What would help me pull the trigger on that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad I could remind
yeah.
myself. Um,
Thank God.
it would be obviously bringing my company to market and entertaining offers for that. I've been in business now since 2009, so going on what 16 years or so. Pretty good established business, really good brand. People know who we are. Um, so I'm talking to a few guys right now, and we'll see where those conversation goes. But really, if I could have an exit strategy for that side of the business and rebrand, that would definitely make me pull the trigger.
So,
I wouldn't do one without the other.
so after you rebrand, what would be like your ideal position to be in, and what would be the goal solely just for that side of it?
Well, you know, looking from a business standpoint, the point of me rebranding would be to change my name. My name is Pro Snow Removal. So, how do people know that we do the best outdoor living spaces around based on that name? They don't, you know. So, we've always been asked, you know, how did you come with the name Pro Snow Removal? You do these high-end custom outdoor living spaces that are just impeccable, but your company name is Pro Snow. So that's the purpose behind rebranding, right? So we would brand to another name that would basically, in my eyes, set the tone and be the staple in the area that we're in for what we do. Okay. I have a name. I'm not revealing the name yet, but when that does happen, people are going to know who to call just based off of that name. Okay. It's not going to be like, for example, my last name, it's not going to be like Johnson Scapes or Pro Scapes or something like that. I've got a pretty thought of name. The name itself is, in my eyes, has a lot of value. So, they're going to know who to call. We're going to rebrand everything. Whatever assets stay with the company, which will be minimal, because a lot of we're asset heavy on the maintenance side of things, mowers, snow raiders, loaders, skid steers, plows, stuff like that. That'll all go with the maintenance side of things. And then we'll hang on to all of our hardscape tools, our construction tools, and an excavator, one skid steer, maybe a couple trucks. So it'll be a lot smaller operation, something that's going to be 3 to 5 employees rather. Right now we're like 6 to 9 employees, without not including part-timers. So we'll rebrand everything over and hit the ground running and just do what we do, create outdoor escapes. So,
I'm curious to know what's probably the most overwhelming side of the business or time consuming side of the business for you.
well, I love being in the field. I love being close to my guys. I love working with my guys. So the time consuming part for me is having to do all the office stuff, having to do the books, having to,
You still do all that?
yeah, I mean, we have an accountant, right? And my wife, she's in the office. She helps us out. But I'm pretty much closely involved in everything I do. So, you know, that's really why we're at the sweet spot we're at, right? Because I can only do so much. If I could duplicate myself, then we could probably turn into a $3 million company overnight, you know? But more money, more problems. So, you know, it's okay to know your growth limit, you know? I mentor a lot of people that have started these businesses around me and come to me and ask advice, questions, and stuff like that. And I always caution people and tell them, when you start off, you're gonna get a push, right? Because everybody wants to push for the new guy in business, support small local business. So you're gonna get a push, you're gonna get some work, and you're gonna start making some money, and you're gonna start making more money than you've ever made. But what you need to remember is that you don't grow too fast and that you save as much money as you can, because what you'll learn as a business owner is anytime you start making money, you usually start spending money. Okay? You need another truck. You need a new machine. You need to go buy this, you need to go buy that. And then before you know it, you've grown so big, and then that money that was coming in isn't coming in like it used to, because now your overhead's a lot higher. Now you're paying $5,000 a month for equipment that you didn't have that bill when you started out. So you were making a lot more money when you started out. You needed a new tool. You hired more guys, payroll got more. Now you have a payroll provider. Now you have insurance costs. Our insurance is like $50,000 a year, and it's gone up. It just keeps going up and it's going up again. So then you get into a point where you grew too fast and now you're struggling because the work slows down and your overhead's a lot higher. And that happened to me, and I've been through that, and it's not fun. You got to pay more tax. You got to everything just costs more the bigger you get, and you essentially, in my eyes, you put a target on your back. For all the people that are going to come knock on your door. New York State, federal government, Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Conservation, all these different state departments, all these different federal departments, because you're a well-established company now, you've been making money, you're not under the radar anymore. So they're going to come and they're going to take what they want. And if you don't do it right and start slow and start budgeting for all these things, then you're going to fall right on your face.
Michael, one last question for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you had a magic wand to instantly improve any part of your business, what would it be?
Hmm. That's a loaded question, because no business is perfect. Mine's definitely not perfect. So there's a lot of things that I wish I could fix, you know. And hypothetically, there is no such thing as a magic wand, but I would say right now, if there's one thing that I could fix in my business with a magic wand, I guess pick the whole company up and move to a warmer climate. When I woke up this morning, it was 27 degrees, and we had, a bunch of frost and everything had to warm up before we started our day, and then we had to pull out the winter jackets. And I'm okay with hoodie stuff, but it was probably pretty cold where you were this morning as well. But
39.
man, I can't deal with the cold anymore. I own a snowplowing company, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that would probably be The thing I would want to do is just pick everything up and move further south where it doesn't get cold. I would obviously have to do something different besides snow plowing, but that'd probably be my answer to the question.
Michael, how can people connect with you and learn about your business?
So, like I said, social is the best way. You can check us out on Facebook / at GoPro Snow. Same thing on Instagram / at GoPro Snow and TikTok as well. We got over 10,000 followers on TikTok. Instagram is still a hard egg to crack, trying to grow our followers on Instagram, but it's owned by Facebook now. You kind of have to deal with that or Meta, however, whatever their company name changes every week, right? So yeah, you can check us out on socials. We're located up in Syracuse, New York, and we're doing regular posts every day, from photos to videos. And that's how a lot of people follow us. But or you could always go to our website, GoProSnow. All my contact information is on there. And anytime anyone wants to call, I'll talk to anyone. I'll answer any question I can. And I'm all about building this industry and growing with people and seeing what other people do. I've been to hundreds of different events, networked with great people all across this country in this industry, and I've learned a lot from other guys as well.
Michael, thank you so much for jumping on this. I appreciate it.